I hope this is an engaging session for you all. Before I begin, I just wanted to understand from each of you, how many of you are aware of virtual reality as a technology? Have you used virtual reality? Have you seen experiences? Show of hands. Okay, okay, okay. Some virtual reality you've seen. Okay. All right. And how did you feel about the technology virtual reality? Was it special in comparison to what you do on a mobile device or watching TV or anything like that? Was it any different? It was lifelike. Excellent, excellent. Anything from you, ma'am? हाँ, वहाँ पे वो दर्शन का है ना? हाँ हाँ, ठीक. दुर्लभ दर्शन. Yeah, got it. Cool. So, you see, I come from a very corporate background. As Arnabji mentioned, I worked at Infosys for around 18 years, starting from mainframe up until C++ and AI. And after that, I flipped back into the startup journey. What happened was I was in Australia for a good 4 years during my stint at Infosys. And there I realized that they build beautiful experience centers for tourism, right? There, I'll give you an example of Australia. I mean, the modern Australia, right? Melbourne, the city was founded in 1853, and they think that is the most ancient history that they have over there. And they project it so well, so beautifully, and so proudly that I think we have a lot to learn from them. And that's what triggered me to understand why India is lacking in tourism for heritage monuments, where we have the most number of ancient monuments the world across, right? And also, I met a couple of UNESCO people early on, and they said it will take another 150 to 200 years to mark all the heritage sites in India as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. 200 years, right? And if you don't know, the business of a heritage site starts from UNESCO marking. A UNESCO World Heritage Site marking leads to 18% increase in employment at that local site, 40% revenue increase for the government. One heritage site. Compare that with in UAE, I think you would have, I mean, with the recent amazing progress that is made in that particular part of the world, there's Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and all of that, right? There are just 2 heritage sites in UAE, just 2 World UNESCO heritage sites, and heritage tourism contributes 8% of that country's GDP, just with 2 sites. And here we are having one, densely populated heritage areas. We need to capitalize on that. That's exactly what I wanted to start with. I wanted to ensure that, we have a methodology by which we could propagate this knowledge to the masses, right? That's what started who we are. There's a simple question, who we are and where do we come from? Using virtual reality. Anybody is aware of this boat? Anybody in the audience? Not these guys. Yeah, it's written also. So what is it? What is the significance of this? Anybody? It happened as recently as January 2026. Yes, exactly. So this was a project from the Ministry of Culture with Sanjeev Sanyal ji. Namaste. So Sanjeev Sanyal ji had this idea that, why can't we recreate based on ancient maritime knowledge or shipbuilding knowledge? Can we recreate a ship from the 1st century Common Era? Okay. So they set about this project funded by Ministry of Culture, and they created this Soon boat. It's called Soon boat, coir ropes and all that. And no technology apart from satellite technology of the modern era. They had to protect their crew on the ship in case something goes wrong. It was a complete sail ship from 1st century Common Era, and it was based on Navashastra and other manuscripts that they read up about. The Navy built the ship. They took it from Porbandar in Gujarat to Muscat in Oman. December 2025 they started, January they landed there and they came back safely. So this was a momentous occasion to understand that any heritage or any knowledge system document can be manifested in real in the modern times. This is absolutely coir rope soon boat. There is no motor, there's no balancing stuff, nothing at all. The material was all from that era, right? I'm using this so that we understand that there is a possibility of a monumental future in a lost world that we are living today. There is hope in all the negativity that we are exposed to. And also for me, it is closer to heart because that is my Gotra, and this is the Mysore state emblem. That's the Mysore state emblem, right, where I come from. I'm from Bangalore. And my mom's dad, I mean, the entire lineage was working for the Maharaja there. So let's get into the presentation with its context, right? What do we do when we see these sites today as ruins? What do we do to get the interest of the audience like you and the common masses that history and its broadcasting becomes mainstream? Currently, history is a hyper niche category. Heritage is a hyper niche category. In fact, people told me that, start an NGO or a foundation, you'll get more money for heritage than as a startup, which is a business enterprise for profit, right? So that itself I wanted to contradict. That was one of my mission statements, to make people realize that this is profitable with a dharmic worldview, which I will talk about. So is it possible to transform the ruins of the present to relived grandeur of the past? I think the answer is very clearly yes. And a lot of people have attempted it at a very amateur level. We take it a little bit professional level. In fact, this is Dholavira as it stands today. Dholavira is a Sindhu Sarasvati civilization site. So we went to the Dholavira and did a complete LiDAR 3D scanning using drones. So this is the topology today, and this is all animation. We take the 3D model, we convert that into animation. I'll go through the work process, and it's related to AI. Just stay with me until I define the term HeriTech. Okay. This is what it stands like today, and this is how it used to be yesterday across all the 7 stages of Sindhu Sarasvati civilization, right? Dholavira is one city that has seen all the stages. The other one is Harappa in Pakistan, which we have not accessible to, right? So we worked very, very closely with Professor R.S. Bisht of ASI, who was the chief excavator of Dholavira in 1988-89, when probably most of you were not even incubated, right? So he is around 81, 82 now, right? And a little hard of hearing. So we were on phone conversations when we were doing this detailed deep dive. And you need a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance to, work with such great minds. I mean, it is a challenge that we love. So the reason I'm showing this to you is we created these struts in a triangle fashion in the first version of the Dholavira experience. Professor called me up, he said, Ajit, it never was a triangle, it was rectangular. So we did an iterative rebuild and created that. So that is the way authenticity is possible today in terms of, the knowledge minds that we have. We can convert that into an authentic experience, right? So as I was saying, that's the information about Dholavira. I'll just take you through the experience that we had created. This is the map of Dholavira across the citadel and the castle and the tower and all that, right, which is part of the Dholavira. So you can select from the map whether you want to be in the present or you want to go in the past in that area of the city. This is how it is today, and these are very quick shots. I mean, the experience is more like a walkthrough, you can walk around. Here I'm just showing quick edits. And it was known for water conservation and all of that, so we simulate how the water flowed from one canal to the other, from one tank to the other, how it was safeguarded and all that kind of stuff. And this is how it used to look in the past. So you kind of take a portal and time travel to the past. Very important, time travel to the past, because that is the patent that we have in India and the world. And all of this was based on the knowledge of Professor Arisbisht and his team. His excavation across 3-4 years was translated into what you see here. And of course, needless to say, he was fascinated. He was very much appreciative of the fact. And you know, there is a principle of paying obeisance to your ancestors, to your elders. This is my way of doing that, let's say. Right? So, as Arnabji introduced, what is who we are? Who we are is a patented startup in the realm of 3D technologies, trying to recreate the past and marry the ancient with the modern. That is what we are into. VR is one of the modalities of the dissipation of knowledge. As I said, we are one of the 3 companies in the world doing this today, right? And we are using AI and blockchain not for the visuals. As you would have clearly made out by now, we have a team working on the animation and 3D modeling. We don't use AI there. We don't use generative AI, but we use AI for something else, and I'll tell you what. So, one of the questions that all of you had, what is HeriTech, right? I mean, this is a term I coined because, you know, being in business and being in the corporate, I realized the way to attract audience is to create terms, to coin trademarks. तो मैं ये पढ़ रहा था फिनटेक है, एडटेक है, मार्कटेक है, सब कुछ है, मैंने हेरिटेक बना दिया. I just created HeriTech. It's a trademark now with the government of India, right? What is HeriTech actually? See, heritage is such a beautiful ocean that has not been tapped right now. I keep telling the other speaker, Vinay, it's a green field. You should just get into anything and everything and you will have some play. So, heritage technically is converted into tangible and intangible. It is categorized like tangible, intangible. Intangible is like music, storytelling, all of these stuff that cannot be, you know, sensorially probably visualized. Tangible is obviously your temples, your assets, your manuscripts, all of that. So, we are trying to bring all of these together into a technology foundation platform. Where, let's say, manuscripts from one researcher becomes the bedrock of a visual experience of a particular temple, or a manuscript or an epigraph or whatever, you know, like Ms. Srinidhi is deep into all of this. So, any story from that inscription can become an experience to relive that past, right? So, that's the kind of work we do. HeriTech is technology built from heritage and technology built for heritage. Now, this is where I want to introduce where we use AI in this whole span. So, technology built from heritage is where AI comes in our company, okay? Technology built for heritage, obviously, we are looking at heritage monuments, visualizing it, that's the virtual reality part. Built from heritage is AI. Why? Because we work on what we call as large behavioral models, LBMs, not large language models, LBMs, where behaviors codified in our shastras, Nyaya Shastra, Tarka Shastra, whatever Shastra it is, those behaviors are codified as foundational algorithms, not built over today's algorithms. And that is plugged into our overall VR experiences, which are essential games. And we want to reward good behavior within that gamified experience through this AI module, right? So, Arnab's point around, you know, companies being for profit and, you know, driven by profits, right? Facebook, YouTube, everybody makes money through ad spends based on the clicks and the reels that you see. You stop seeing today, they will lose out business, the investors will pull out, they'll all move into the AI realm. That is the power that you guys have in your hands. Now, what is our model? Our model is to reward not the addiction part or make money out of the addiction or the behavioral modalities of visual experiences. We want to ensure that those visual experiences that they have are rewarded with their own good behavior, inculcating human values inside while you are on the device in terms of gaming. So, while you are in Dholavira or while you are in any heritage site, and if you just perform your obeisance, you just do a namaste, our VR headset will track the body movement and it will reward you with good behavior points, right? So, that becomes your leaderboard. So that's the kind of AI that we are plugging in, right? So now that I have explained everything, HeriTech stands at the center of Earth, Human and Tech, and this is not mambo jumbo. This is, I mean, I started creating the term, I understand, I confess, but I think the beauty about HeriTech is we are looking at planet, people and progress, as was the theme of India AI Summit. We look at it as Earth, Human and Tech. It's the confluence of all these three, where technological is responsible for humanity, technology is responsible for the planet, right? And that is purely as per our Dharma Shastras. We need to take care of our planet, we need to be responsible towards our planet and towards fellow humanity. So I hope HeriTech is clear, and we will have a Q&A at the end. Just hold on to your questions until the end. Yeah. Now a little bit about what we are at, who we are. What is that platform that we are building? The platform is, one is the VR time travels that you already saw a glimpse of, right? Each of the experiences around 12 to 15 minutes in length, built on game engines with 3D modeling, with 3D characters. The 3D characters have costumes and jewelry from those times. You recreate that time and space. That is one of the offerings. The other one, we work with Sony PlayStation, PS5 to develop games based on Indian culture and heritage and plug them into that, because Sony is looking for Indian content and nobody is supplying them with Indian content. And this is the story with any world provider. We are partners with virtual reality tourism portals. So on MetaQuest headsets, you have tourism portals like apps. Those apps propagate tourism from Australia, from Dubai and all the other cities. They don't have anything from India. So we are the only suppliers to them of Indian content. That gives us tourism revenues back from abroad. So people travel based on those, right? So anything with India, it is a green field. It's a white space. Anything that you want to do, double click, it becomes an industry that you will be the prime mover of because of the early mover advantage. Apart from that, we are into 3D printing of temples and sculptures because we do 3D scanning. LiDAR 3D scanning, the data is there up to a millimeter resolution. We create small sculptures, miniatures, viable, and we create large models also. Apart from that, we are into neuro research on Vedic chants and musical ragas, how they impact your human brain in terms of listener and in terms of practitioner. And we want to put that into the overall experience of you visiting a temple with a deity, so that there is a subconscious healing that you undergo. So you understand there are so many modalities that we have tried bringing together in one platform. There are umpteen number of many more modalities that you can bring in with your creativity. Lastly, VR concerts. So this is what started who we are actually. My dream one night was of people watching a music concert using the headset. Usually my dreams become lyrics or music. This became a startup, right? So I'm a musician, I'm a composer also. I've got a recording studio at home. My whole life was into music. So post-retirement, I had planned that I'll be a musician and a composer. No, post-retirement, I'm doing this. So there's really no retirement in my life. So this is what actually started the entire story. So we'll just go through the typical components of this HeriTech metaverse or whatever you've heard of, right? So VR, AR, I think all of us are fairly familiar now with certain exposure. Augmented reality is where in the real world, you're still looking at the virtual experiences. So the floor is real, but you get your augmented experiences on top of it, right? It's typical for classrooms learning. Many of you would have visited museums. Holograms, anybody? Holograms? Yeah? 3D holograms and all. So we create 3D holograms of historical characters. And we do a real-time Q&A with them, AI enabled, again, voice enabled, right? In the language of their choice. So we've built for Shivaji, we are building for Kalidas. And we want to do those kind of things. And a lot of the visual clues, we dig into the manuscripts again. Any travel logs of those times which describe them physically, we create them based on that. As much authenticity as we can source from, instead of leaving everything to imagination. And I'm not using the single word AI because in the VR team that we have, AI is banned. So we don't use AI for Documentation, storyboard, scripting, we don't. Visual AI, absolutely banned. And this is not my diktat, okay? So in one of the projects, the team said, sir, we want to try generative AI, can we do it? We may get some visual clues about the temple. This was Sharda Pitha, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. I said, okay, be my guest. I knew the answer would be a vehement no. Be my guest. They took 3 days, they came back. All the projections of Sharda were Chinese. Chinese. All the projections of the Sharda Pitha were like Buddhist pagodas. Pagodas. So then I told them, see, this is what it is. Now I know that they know that with data it will get better. Same way I'm saying AI makes things very easy for us. The beauty about life is make it challenging and complicated. Otherwise there's no learning curve. There's nothing that you learn at the end of the day. So in the VR stream, AI is banned, as I said. Right? There's nothing that we use of AI. And all of these are done by hand through 3D designers and artists that we have in our team. Very small team. And some subcontractors also. Now, the beauty about immersive technology, and this I include VR, AR, all of these. The research done by PwC in 2020, I think, was classroom training. Again, it was the pandemic area, everybody was into online training. VR was known to have an emotional connection which is 20x more than a classroom or e-learning. What this tells us is the retention capability of VR as a technology is way higher than any two-dimensional mode of learning that you have today. And this kind of powered us into talking about VR as a tech of preference. Right? Because behavioral possibilities are there, change possibilities are there, that way, right? And apart from that, more focused, emotionally, confident to apply skills and all that. That's why industries are doing VR-based training in oil rig, manufacturing industries. All their modules are based in VR because their learning capability is faster. A 2-month training module is converted into 5 days. Of course, oil and rig 2 months becomes 2 months. They need to know each and every bit of it. But manufacturing industry, 2 months becomes 5 days. Productivity improvement, early onboarding, and productivity, that way. Across the museums, you would have seen all this technology are there today, so I'm not going to be spending too much time. But the use of that technology is so important, right? And this is applicable to AI also. VR should be used to create experiences that people cannot get anywhere else. So VR is not about visiting a site and watching it as it is today, or visiting a temple and getting the darshana or ability to offer flowers and puja virtually, which for me is equally adharmic, So I detest from that aspect of virtual reality. I want to use it to take people to places where they have not been. And mostly this is to the past, to the distant past, with minimal documentation and recreation. Now, all of you, how many of you were alive during the 80s and 90s? Okay, excellent. So, virtual reality came out in 1990 as a commercial technology. Until today, it has not been mass adopted anywhere in the world. Okay, so it is a fundamental problem. So I'm not going to dwell on the problem. I'm going to give you a glimpse of technological history here. 1990 में ये technology आया है, ठीक है? The first web browser was a 3D web browser. 1993. It was called Labyrinth. It was by a team called Mosaic, led by Mark Anderson, who is a great investor right now, right? So he created this, and there was a VRML, virtual reality markup language. Inko pata hai? Virtual reality markup language, okay? They were all gung-ho about 3D back then. Even I was a kid that time, kid meaning I was a teenager, right? It was a dial-up connection. For those who don't know dial-up connection, our phones were used. our landline phones were used to connect to modulator, demodulator to access the internet. Bandwidth was 5112 kbps. A mail would take 2 minutes to be sent. I'm not exaggerating, right? Downloads used to take forever. I mean, you can have your coffee and come back, right? So that's how internet started. That time, with that bandwidth, they wanted to go 3D. You understand the, the recklessness that the West has. Eventually, in 1996, bandwidth constraints, hardware limitations stopped the entire program for virtual reality. 1996. Whatever AI has cloud, winters, AI winters in terms of funding in 60s and 70s, VR had it back then. Now, important point to note, bandwidth constraints, hardware limitations. But that's not the case today. That's not the case today. I mean, you have all the exponential technologies alive and kicking today, all in sync. You take blockchain, you take virtual reality, 3D modeling, 3D scanning, all high-end technologies using all the bandwidth that they can choke up. And of course, we have I call it the cognition layer, okay, open to debate. And finally, the compute layer, which is still infant, but the moment this kicks in, I think everybody here agrees this will get accelerated like nobody's business. And when technology accelerates recklessly, what do you get? You get this, which is the possibility of a metaverse being formed, but how are you going to be in that metaverse? Are you going to be constantly on your phone? Are you going to not enjoy the outer scenery and be clawed in your virtual reality headset? Or are you going to go within and see the ocean within you, or see the Orion constellation within you, right? Just a question aside, how many of you are into heavy metal and rock music? Please raise your, at least one you raise, no? Thank you. Super. So how many of you, so there's a band called Dream Theater, Iron Maiden, Metallica. Anybody has heard these names? Theek hai na? So the cover art of Dream Theater is done by one guy who was a member of another band. His name is Hugh Syme. I commissioned him for my second album to create the cover art for my album. This was the cover art of my second album, which talks about Sindhu Sarasvati Seals and their decipherment, the decipherer, the Orion constellation and its link to Nataraja in Chidambaram, and the inner fractal universe. So there were songs on this, and there were songs on the addiction and the social media behavioral aspects of today's world. So I gave him a brief that, all of these are the songs, this is what I need. I need these specifically. This was based on a historian's account, an American historian who's into Native American practices. He's no more now. He told me that once he got admitted to the hospital and he was taken in a wheelchair with a VR headset. I said, okay, that should be there, right? So like this, the entire artwork was inspired. But my takeaway here is, do we want to live in a world like this, or do we want to see this expanse? What gets you more creative? What gets you more pumped up? It is needless to say, with this alignment, it is the expanse, right? So we are in that cusp where we can create anything and everything now. Nothing is a limitation. But depending on how we are aligned, we need to create something that is responsible for humanity, for planet, and for technology, that whole HeriTech part. That's where HeriTech plays a role. Now, with all of this explained, I will just take a couple of more minutes on why we don't use AI in virtual reality. So this is a Raja Ravivarma painting. I'm sure all of you have heard, right? So this is Sita Swayamvara, as they call it. And of course, there are a lot of accounts that Sita never had a Swayamvara and all that. I mean, whatever, right? So the idea was to convert this painting into a living, breathing 3D entity for storytelling, right? So you got the permission from the Ramavarma Foundation, who is a direct descendant of Raja Ravivarma. And we used game engine to create a 3D model of, Lord Ram, Dashrath, and all of those characters, okay? I'm saying we used game engine to create 3D models. We were drawing. We didn't do prompt. Just clarifying, right? And we needed this to be exactly as much as possible nearing to the original painting. So we would always do a comparison and mapping, right? Now these are some videos. I hope they play. Let me try playing here. Well, they should play, no? Dola Vida played, no? Yeah. So this is called motion capture. Have you heard motion capture technology? Anybody? No? So this guy is moving his head right, left, and this one is moving. So we do language lip syncing using this technology. So they speak in whatever language, right? All of this done by people, not plugged in by AI. So while this is happening, we are also ensuring that the physics of the experience is actual. So we do wind simulations for the hair and all that, right? Because everything is created by hand. It's a static, it's a binary, it's a digital data. But we kind of create these simulations so that it's realistic for the end user, right? Now, while all of this happens, we are also into the motion capture where a real figure is walking down the steps and the digital figure also is embarking on that. The idea behind the entire experience is Vishwamitra walks out of the painting, comes near you when you are wearing a VR headset, takes you into the space, and you get to become part of that whole painting. You can see it in 3D, and you are hearing them speak. You are hearing the public there chanting and all of that kind of stuff, right? So this is Vishwamitra holding the stick in the painting. So we have created the same angle and he is trying to do the motion capture, which is getting recorded on this device here. Now, once that is recorded, we transpose that on the Vishwamitra 3D avatar here. And we then simulate the entire movement, the walk. So the guy is in the background, Vishwamitra is in the foreground, and they walk. The same thing comes in the overall experience. It's like movie production. In fact, I was telling Vinay, the day I had that dream, I should have just done some homework before getting in. Because this is a very, very expensive undertaking. This is like running your own movie studio with all the glitterati, right? So that's the kind of work we do where we do not use AI. For the simple reason that every gait, every human behavior is indigenous. We have to respect that. In Africa, if we are doing these experiences, we want to respect the African culture and ethics, right? Same way. So, I'll quickly go through this. We were at the G20 in 2023, lot of impact, 1 lakh plus visitors, most of them having this very, very special embodied cognition experience. How many of you know what is embodied cognition? Okay, it's a neuro concept where you become one with the virtual world. You tend to behave as though you are there. So we've had people folding hands, which is still okay. I'm sure you would have folded hands when you do that Durlabh darshan, but we never ever imagined that people would remove their shoes. You saw the animation, right? It's animation. Every kid will know it's animation, but they really removed their shoes. So this tells me that behavioral transformation is possible at an individual level and at scale. That is what triggered the AI part of the behavioral models in my mind. Some more impact around the whole thing. Now, just hold on to your question. What has VR got to do with AI? Everybody is getting bored. Has anybody heard or seen this character? Anybody? It's called homunculus. It is a representation of a motor map or a sensory map of the body as seen by the brain. So it just tells you that how much of brain is used for tasting, holding, hearing, seeing. It's an ugly thing because it's the proportionate use of brain map for those particular sensory experiences. Most of the technology today, visual technology, is on eyes and ears, correct? Movies, whatever it is, eyes and ears. They are occupying not a significant part of the human brain. But still, your human mind is already deprecated. You're not able to concentrate, you don't have focus, right? You're distracted very easily. Now imagine if in virtual reality, I bring in haptic experience where you put on a glove and you can touch water, limestone, granite, whatever. That will trigger the brain activity like this. How much of the brain would be occupied? Just imagine the amount of focus it will need and how distracted you will become as a result of it. And that is the mark or probably the essence of a dharmic entrepreneur who keeps these things in mind before designing technologies. You cannot, as a payment to your ancestry, you cannot afford the younger generation to be even further addicted. So you understand, right? In 3D world, this is the kind of behavior that you will be subjected to. Meta, thankfully, they have closed the lab, but they were looking at 17 hours of experiences non-stop. 17 hours with your food, everything delivered online. Yeah, they were looking at it. So imagine what could have happened to an entire humanity, generation-wise, right? So I am very mindful of these things, and everything that I research into, I make it a point to bring that into the company structure. Now, with all of this, as I said, this is the state of affairs today with respect to our kids, with respect to the youngsters here also, and with respect to the elders also, whoever uses this tech, right? We want to create a counterpoint of technology where this is abdicated. How many of you know what is a counterpoint in music? It's a Western classical structure where music is playing normally on a scale or on a chord, and there's a counterpoint that is completely atonal or upper swaram or whatever, but it becomes part of the entire music. Ilayaraja used that technique in a lot of his songs, right? And that's why it becomes very unique musician pieces, Ilayaraja's music. So we want to create that counterpoint by bringing in the AI part. So now that you understand, where AI comes in and why it is coming in our case, right? I will also get to the other aspects of AI which we are working on. I mean, Steve Jobs and all, nobody needs any information. As I said, social media today, social media yesterday. Okay? Social media yesterday has got all these problems, even in India. I mean, I'm not saying UK or anything. And even 2 or 3 weeks back, I think a week before the India AI summit, this suicide happened in South Korea. And a couple of suicides happened in Delhi for K-pop fans. Some girls, committed suicide, right? Now, why is all this happening? It sounds so unreasonable, so illogical, right? I mean, we are all people of logic here. We love science. Why are these things happening? Because your neuro behavior is getting jeopardized on a daily basis because of your usage of these devices. Simple as that. It's habit forming. Okay. Now, this is the average time spent by an American girl on mobile device in a day. Look at social media. Look at gaming. And this is what happens. Now, it's just that if it's impacting girls, right, who are differently made neurologically, I have no hopes on the boys. Neurologically, they are differently made, right? Their hormonal things, everything is different. If they are getting impacted at this scale, I mean, these are all research areas of US, okay? These are not fake data. This is not AI generated images, right? Just imagine 13 to 17, yeah, teen, formative years. If your life is ruined, what Viksit Bharat 2047 do you want to develop here in India? I ask you all. What is the probability that we will get there if our generation is like this? And again, this is a beautiful quote from Dennis Miller. Dennis Miller, you know him, comedian, right? He had a beautiful quote, never have lives less lived been so chronicle. It is such a take on social media. Everybody and anybody is a superstar on social media, right? And that is because by design, social media apps wanted more and more people. That's why it is free. And you all know when the product is free, you're the product. And your data is now public, global. Concept of privacy is out of the window and the door. Everybody knows what you're doing. If you are following Premananda on YouTube, Ashta, you will get it. You will get only those, right? They know you. So never have lives been so chronicle. Do you want to live in this age where there's exponential technology that I took you through? There's a non-linear acceleration of time that we cannot perceive because our brains are getting over-occupied. Where are we heading? And that is where the responsibility of a technopreneur comes in. And all of us are that, and many of us are like that. Not only for profit, but for purpose also, right? Now that was ushering in the age of AI. Now this is shaping the age of AI. LLMs are beauty. How many of you use ChatGPT? How many use ChatGPT today morning first thing? You're doing that now? Just asked. So you used ChatGPT regularly, right? All of you use it, right? Okay. So for records, I am not on social media, I am not on GPT, I am not on any of these platforms individually. Only thing I am on LinkedIn because that's a necessity of business. There was a test conducted, and I think Arnabji shared this earlier last July. Okay. And I was happy that MIT Media Labs did this. They did this research. Beautiful. What does it say? Picks up 54 participants aged 18 to 39. Can you read these? Clear? So there were 3 groups, man. It was divided into 3 groups. One, you write an essay based on your brain, essay based on Google, essay based on ChatGPT. Okay. Amazing results. ChatGPT assisted group demonstrated lowest levels of brain engagement, 32 areas, EEG, lowest levels of engagement. Highest was the guys who wrote from their brain. I mean, I don't know what they wrote from their brain. Huh? That's another aspect altogether. But still. Now, cognitive debt, again, one of those terms that we will come to hear in the days to come. It is basically the inability of the long-term brain capacity traded for short-term speed. And I told you about the homunculus, I told you about the brain mapping, I told you about how irresponsible. Speed, time is of essence for us. Even in our Shastras, it's all about time and space. You respect time, you get the space, and you're able to deal with all that thing, all that comes to your life, correct? Here, they are trading it for short-term speed. All of you want speed, correct? I thought you'll get some questions prepared on ChatGPT and you'll fire it at me or probably the others also. I'm hopeful, right? But everybody is pressed for time, right? And that is because your human behavior is channeled that way. You're either in fear or you're in acceleration. Here, the technology is accelerating you. Are you mentally made up for this? Absolutely not. And if this is what kids will learn in the days ahead, the quality will go down, the competency levels will go down. Any amount of cajoling this generation may not help. When I say cajoling, any amount of upliftment, you give quota, you give this, that, kuch nahi hona wala. Because they are targeting your brain. They are targeting your brain. And mind you, modern science has not deciphered how the brain works. Our Shastras have deciphered, but there's hardly any research. On how we can tally it with this. We need to do that. We need to do those kind of things. So finally, quoting ability. Highlight this was, when Arnabji shared this, the last thing I read was this quoting ability. They had written it 2 minutes ago, the ChatGPT guys, the essay, handed over. Then the guys asked them, can you just narrate what is there in the essay? None could narrate anything. 2 minutes. There's no retention. So your mind is getting depleted, and believe me, neuroplasticity is a symbol. If your brain shrinks, most of your motor activities will go down. You are happily sitting, chatting with your friends, canteen, coke pay, all that. I cannot imagine at age 35, 40, you will be neuro-depleted. It's a possibility now. Not trying to scare you all, trying to give you a reality check on where technology is potently responsible for probably destroying humanity. And you're all into research. I'm sure some of you would have read this research paper that came out in 2017, Anatomy of AI. Must research paper, everybody should read this. So this is done by two researchers, one male, one female, who are now part of some ethics committee in some companies. They did the entire anatomy of AI, matlab pura supply chain, where does the water come from, where does the electricity come from, how much of data of a man is used, what parameters of that man. This is a low resolution image, but anatomy of .ai is the website where you can download this high resolution. This took them 2 years to look at, which means they did it in 2015. Now it's 2026, 10 years up. The infra is far, far, far more deeper, far more embroiled. So this is man's, this is woman's. You see the parameters here only, it is so many more. You know how, you see how they are targeting one gender? Because they know, generationally that is what will give the next. So these are all parameters. So this is a man, there is a figure of a man here, there is a figure of a woman here. These are all parameters, they are behavioral parameters, socio-behavioral parameters on social media, your metadata, right? This I'm sure it would have amplified by now. They would be getting more and more data. And at the other end, they also talk about mining, the areas of rare earth metal mining, where and all it is happening, right? 70% is in China, all that kind of stuff. Everything is built in here to give you a perspective that this technology uses so much to bring you within seconds what you need. And when you do that, of course, I mean, it's no good on our Shastras as yet. But I don't see this as a problem. It's just that it's not accurate enough. Even after all that burning of minerals and oil and water, you will get a fairly inaccurate one. And in our case, it will be a highly inaccurate one. Because they have Chinese data, they don't have Indian data. Even, of course. So now, you see, we are in time travels to the past, correct? I am in time travel to the past, but I want to time travel to the future now. Abhi future mein hum jayenge AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, cool, amazing marketing terminology again. Now, this is the possibility of AGI for human intelligence, okay? This is based on INSA research, INSA. I think it's Neurosymbolic Architecture, NSA, okay? International Neurosymbolic Architecture for AI. So this is their prediction on cognitive AI and AGI, okay? This is the reality on LLMs. Matlab, jo hum use kar rahe and we think it is magic, it is the best possible today, it is nowhere compared to AGI. Imagine your neurofunctions as a result of that advancement, right? Without safeguards, without checks, without counterpoints, as I mentioned. And today in Silicon Valley, 70% oppose research on AGI until it is certain controlled by, the public or the government enterprise. Because now they have learned that this is like seemingly dangerous technology.
They oppose pausing research?
Yeah, they oppose the pause. They oppose the pause because they want public control. Okay. They are okay with them going through the research, but at some point in time they want public intervention, which is government intervention there. Public there means government. In some places. Yeah. Privatized. So, and this is the beauty about LLM. I don't know if this will be solved. I think mostly it will be solved. I am open to your thoughts and ideas. They don't do long-term planning and they do not learn continuously. Right? Now these are parameters that are easily codable and they will, get this data also, not a problem. But today's limitation is this. And with that only we are excited. We are so excited. All the emails, ChatGPT. How many of you ChatGPT? There are some new entrants. ChatGPT you use? Yeah? You used it today morning? Okay, good. Excellent. So at the end of this all, this guy was the advisor to Obama, okay? And according to him, the biggest problems were these. biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse and all, but he realized that biggest problems are these: apathy, greed, selfishness, because that is what is driving the profit-making companies in the West. It's their greed, it's their apathy towards humanity, and it's their pure selfishness, which in Shastras, and I know these guys are the experts, what you build, you embody or reflect onto the others. So as a result of what they have built, the consumers are also becoming greedy, selfish, apathetic. I mean, that is my belief, and I'm sure could be an understanding at a very metaphysical level. So we need to understand the power of technology and its ruminations. AI is great, but it can be made ethical and responsible. It should be made ethical and responsible. And we are looking at AI to codify these behaviors, right? So now all long story done, all the masala, everything done. Now you know why what we are doing in AI is going to have some impact on you guys, right? As a responsible dharmic entrepreneur. And now they call us Hindu religious entrepreneurs. It is an acronym in Scotland, HRE. Hindu religious entrepreneur, like an Islamic religious entrepreneur or a Christian religious entrepreneur. I am one of them in the research paper also, right? So we covered all of these topics, right? And we are starting very early today. We want to solve that problem with LBMs and the bigger problem of the planet. You see that icon on the top right? That was India AI Summit design. For planet, people, progress. They are different icons. Nicely, I've used them to keep it contextual. Now, this is the amount of water being used for AI. Look at the gallons.
Yes.
Huh? ये तो आज का है. मतलब this is 2023. God knows what it is today, right? And electricity. Data centers in the US, around 200 terawatt hours of electricity, roughly what it takes to power Thailand for a year. ठीक है? Single GPT-3, of course now we are at 5.4 or whatever that version is, but GPT training run consumes 1200 megawatt hours, power 120 homes for a year. American homes for a year. Advanced. Home automation and all that. Right? That is a single training run that you guys give. This is what you cost. Perspectives are required. By the way, my second album was called Wider Perspectives. That perspective is very important. And wider because I'm called World Wide Web on the internet. I'm into ether, akasha and that kind of tattva, so that is, wide, in Buddhist nihilism. 552 tons of CO2. Where is the carbon neutral? Where is carbon credit? This is the highest form of debit, right? Now, laughable, yes, but what the hell are we doing about this? When you do a GPT on your beautiful user experience, you don't see all these, right? You think it's just a Google query because we've been habituated to Google search for 25 years. It is that homunculus habit forming loop. And we still think that we are just searching and there's a back-end data. No, the data is getting powered by all of these when half of the world doesn't have these resources. And I'm not surprised that people want to go to Mars and Moon and all that. They will have to. Now, what are we building? We are looking at, and this is probably very, very initial days in our research and in our journey in AI. I come from an LLM background. GPT-1 we worked on at Infosys, where we created supply chain visibility chatbot in 2016, around 10 years back. And we were working with the CEO back then. Vishal Sikka was the CEO. He was not fired that time. So we were directly reporting to him, and the idea was to create a supply chain visibility across applications. So that time SAP was the ERP system. So we would create an agentic AI, as they call it today. We had created that to call SAP, get the data of the invoice, screen scrap it, create a process automation, and then give the output back. So it was based on GPT 1.0. We used NLTK, NLP, all of that, right? We created an ontology for supply chain and built that out. Little did we realize that we just should have called it agentic AI, and we would have got a great marketing spree. And that's why I'm very particular about naming things. That's why who we are, right? Our idea is to build clever algorithms and avoid brute computational force. Brute computational force, which is what water and electricity is being used for. Firing every query. How many of you did Ghibli or Gilby? Ghibli. Sir. See, pardon the ignorance, but that's how I am. Ghibli, na? How many? Show of hands, ma, please. Wow. I am so proud of you, ma. So, Sam Altman went on Twitter and said, guys, stop. Our servers are burning. It's exactly what is happening to Earth at that point in time. Your WhatsApp profiles, your social media photos, your portraits that you got printed, they all burnt a part of the Earth. You have to realize in perspective, you burnt a part of the Earth that existed billions of years before you walked on this planet. You burnt off a part of the Earth that your ancestors had thought that you will not burn if you had followed dharmic traditions. Because our ancestors were coexisting with the planet, they would pray to a tree before cutting it. And they would pray to an animal before, consuming or whatever. Now, with that kind of an ancestry and a lineage, why are we the way we are today? And that is what who we are promises to answer in the days ahead with your blessings. Okay, this is the tagline of India AI Summit, right? Welfare for all, happiness for all. This is a very interesting African proverb. I'm a huge fan of African proverbs. To go back to tradition is the first step forward. Oh, what intelligence they had. There's one more saying that though the mustache is longer than the eyebrow is older than the mustache. What a deep perspective. African proverbs, one sentences, like our Shubhashitani, for example, right? We have to codify all of these to bring it out in the open. So what we are building, we call it Grey Eye. Actually, 5 more minutes, or no? I realize now. So we call it Grey Eye, okay? Grey Eye because grey is the color of wisdom, okay? And Grey Eye because it rhymes with AI. I told you, naming, paramount importance, naming. So we want to design for non-addiction, where need is greater than greed. We serve your need of finding out your heritage, your ancestry. We don't serve your greed of consuming. And a little bit about the logo here. So this is inspired by a sculpture of Chennakeshwara in Belur temple, where he is holding it in his left hand and there's a pine cone on his hand. Pine cone, for all of you into spirituality here, it is a symbol of the pineal gland, which is there in the brain. Pineal gland is the eye of wisdom or whatever in certain philosophies, right? So I got inspired by that. So we created that, and we created a grey eye at the bottom, in the middle, being picked up by the AI hand. So it is a transfer of power, transfer of knowledge, transfer of authority in a very, very responsible way, right? So that is the logo which we are going to trademark. And now that that logo is on the top right, we will move ahead. Now, evolution of AI. First things, we started with statistic models, which is in 70s, 80s, or even before that, after the winters and all that, right? Of course, 50s it started with Marvin Minsky and all that. 70s, 80s is when they started understanding. Statistic models, logic regression, decision trees, you would have heard of all these algorithms, right? Now, the idea was outlier data was not welcome, correct? You needed to find a pattern. Outlier data is not welcome. Problem was never important. It was only for statisticians, and they were ruling the roost in the AI world in 70s and 80s, okay? Until the next decade or two, biomimic model, neural networks and RFMs came in, right? Decision trees in a forest model was random forest model basically, right? They learned the mishap of this, they created this, RFM and all that. By the way, we've reverse engineering all these algorithms. We've reverse engineered, we've understood what they work and how they use the data, what data they used year on year. Some of these algorithms, like I think decision tree was used for an election in 1950 in US. So I don't know how an election data can be used for behavioral patterning of us today. Just a inquisitive question. The other way to look at it is for the speed and all that, you just build some AI module and finish it off, right? This is ruled by computer scientists and physicists, right? That's why AI is so exciting for all of us. Going forward, I am thinking the ages of reasoning models, and I'm just putting this, I'm sure there are many more. Need for proliferation of ancient multimedia data sets to undo and learn previous generation AI models, point one. Unlearn the previous AI learning. Of course, we are looking at computer scientists, but interestingly, scriptural scholars, ancient language experts. We believe those guys in the IKS realm will drive this revolution. And mind you, they're all very sparse, they're far and few, because HeriTech doesn't pay a livelihood, right? So I am looking at this area. So I mean, statistic, it was always, model is always correct, learning can wait. Learning comes first, reasoning can wait. For me, reasoning comes first, humanity cannot wait. This is basically a mind map of what it takes in a human for the behavior part, okay? Very, very rough mind map. There's no research, there's no deep Shastric knowledge and all, just, just for your visibility. Of course, we are looking at mental models, like, Vinay is a champion there. And biases, inherent biases, right? The idea is to reduce these biases, not eliminate them. If you're not biased, then what's the point? Ethics, rules and behavior, correct? LLMs today create a synthetic personality. ठीक है? आपके interest areas, आपका कैसे question आप करते हो, what is the intent behind your question, everything is mapped already, correct? Now there is a beauty of LLM. 8 billion avatars will be there. With that data, what can it not do that cannot encapsulate or enslave you? I'm asking a question. So if that is the kind of trajectory that we are onto today, we really need something to focus on this aspect, because that core remains a soft aspect of what you are. Not measurable, only deducible to a certain extent. So we want to take that channel and create the behavior model. Of course, ontology, you all know what ontology is, and in the world of humans, this is what ontology means, right? We want to create ontologies based on these Shastric Shadadarshanas, right? So we've started with Nyaya Shastra, okay? You want to note down? Sorry, okay. No, okay. So Nyaya, this is a rough ontology prepared by Sai Susadalaji, right? Who probably some of you may be aware of him. And he has introduced what is called as dasha, or the states. So he wanted to do a finite state machine kind of a architecture. So we've used this paradigm and created a model which injects into a gamified experience like this. Okay, it's a very rough prototype. Okay, basically the idea is, the idea was to he is entering a temple. God knows, this is again AI. Yeah? The visual is AI, sorry. They just don't understand what a temple is. So this guy goes to a temple, he sees a beggar, he doesn't see a beggar. How does he help her? And there's a note lying on the ground. Does he pick it and give it to her? Does he pick it for himself? Based on this, the behavioral scores are given, right? That is coming from the algorithms that we built. And this is another one where there's a dry waste kind of a thing. So does he pick and put it in the right bin or the wrong bin, right? I'm trying to tell you the visual thing because we are into visual depiction. We want to do this in our temple experiences, in our ancient temple economy experiences, so that behavioral learning also happens in tandem with your scholastic learning. Because that is the easier thing to do, quantifiable, this is not. So we are looking at measuring these kind of behaviors and giving them a scoring kind of a thing. So, very rough prototype, as I told you, right? But we want to build this in a deterministic way, and I know that is up for debate. because we believe that finite behaviors exist in our Shastras and we have to codify them. That is the superset for us. Okay. So this is something that we've already done, and we want to look into, Natya Shastra and all of these ontologies also. Kautilya obviously for the political or the way of living and all that. And we have partners and scriptural experts working with us on these. Enneagram is another one. I don't know how many of you have known this. This is not that INPR or INFR, whatever that intro, no, not that. This is another one, which is again used by US secret department in 70s, 80s to map people.
Right?
Enneagram, yeah. So we want to create something out of this also, because this has some Hindu roots. Okay, yeah. So, and basically in the Western thought, no, problem is Enneagram personality is fixed. They think personalities are fixed. No, it's not. No, I have changed in the last 10 years. Correct? So we want to give that freedom of expression and ensure that Indian philosophy runs this kind of paradigm. So we want to inject this also as a behavioral model. Finally, Arnab ji, finally, ठीक है ना? In summary, मतलब slide भी आ गया अभी तो. In summary, again I go back to Kaundinya, again I go back to the technology of the past, and I am saying let's navigate with large behavioral models towards responsible and ethical AI. And last slide, how many of you have heard of the story of Bhasmasura? For me, AI for the last 10 years since I did that Infosys project is Bhasmasura. I could foresee the damage it would cause because we were working on algorithms in the ground level. So I believe today AI algorithms is your Bhasmasura. You are imposed with your digital slavery. You got to get out of it. I believe LBMs are the solution to it. That's all. And I'll stop here, and any questions I'm happy to. Thank you.